Hi. So today I'm going to try something different because I have a special guest.
Special guest.
Yeah, no, but
You have a guest.
No, but it is very special because we've spent 3 years sort of discussing these themes that we've been researching the last month in person. And I felt it would be a really ideal way to sort of give another expression to what we found and what came up for us by trying to work it into this format of a audio dance workshop. So today I'm here with Benjamin Pohlig, or Benni. We've met before. You've been on Peter Dance With.
Yay!
And also me and you have had a personal relationship for 20 years.
Yeah.
So a long time.
Back to our bachelor days.
Exactly. But ever since then, actually, I think we have both. I feel like as though you brought a lot of questioning in terms of politics, which actually helped my politics. And I feel like I was questioning dance a lot. And we met actually in that intersection of dance and politics. And so to speak to the research that we've found ourselves articulating, we've tried to answer the question, how does an anarchist dance? Oh, sorry, say the real question. Ben.
No, there's no real question.
But how we wrote
Your
it,
version is in singular and mine is in plural. How do anarchists dance?
Yeah.
But maybe you just find yourself a singular anarchist, so then it's the question, how does an anarchist dance?
It's true. And maybe to sort of like simplify this, in a lot of ways, it's the question of like, how do you dance without order?
Or command.
Or command, yeah. But of course, it also begs the question of what is anarchy, which is this thing of command or order without command or order. And it also asks us, what is dance? Right?
Yeah. And I mean, we were discussing it over the course of the last month, like you were saying, and you were often speaking about what are the conditions that allow such a dance to emerge. And in a way, I was wondering about this from the opposite side and was thinking, what if the dance actually creates its own conditions? And then in order to, in a way, provoke ourselves to go further with this question, I riffed on a Deborah Hay prompt.
Yeah.
And that Deborah Hay prompt is, what if you move and you call it dance? Or if you call it you're dancing? More or less, that's the phrasing.
Yeah.
I never get it exactly right, and it's also not important to get it exactly right. But what if you start to move and you start calling your moving, you're dancing?
Yeah. And for this, you transformed it a little bit to say, what if you move and call it anarchy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this sort of like shift in the sort of conception of the what if. I mean, what's really magical with Deborah Hay and these kinds of questions, I think, is how they have an openness. Like by having it as a what if, it provides a sort of opting in and out of the question and surrounding the question. Like as a singularity, we sort of get to move around it to understand it from multiple directions and sides. And it's less, it performs something different and to the sort of authority. And I wanted to say as well, like, anarchy can also be against domination, not just against order, but domination in general. And for me, that's been a helpful thing. But yeah, going back to what if you move and call it anarchy? So if you were to say, move and call it anarchy, this would speak more to an instruction and you'd have to deal more with the authority of it. Whereas putting the what if there opens it up more. But as Benni, you were saying, I got interested in, but if the ground isn't established in a way that provides the space to be with the question in a manner which supports people engaging in anarchy and the informal hierarchies, maybe the forms of domination that can emerge within informality, then even by shifting the tone of the question to from a directive to a question, doesn't save it. However, we should try it. This is where I want to end up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that for me, the what if questions are also always an hypothetical. They don't have to be true. But by taking it serious, you have to deal with the consequences of it. So it also goes back to actually what is a dance, or in what case what does it mean to move, and what is anarchy then?
Perfect. So we're going to pause so you can try what if you move and call it anarchy. So spend some time with that, however long you want, and come back and we will continue. Okay, we're out of breath.
Literally out of breath.
I think what's interesting, and hopefully you at home, when you get to try this, or maybe if you're walking around the street or wherever you're listening to this and you start to consider your movement as anarchy, perhaps, the relationship becomes really important. And we've been so lucky to have this opportunity where we at DansiT and at MARC in Sweden, DansiT here in Trondheim and MARC in Knislinge, and to be together. But I think it really speaks to the relationality of dance that I sort of start to understand, and even the relationship to oneself. So you could almost sort of evoke self-governance. So we could maybe speak a little bit also about the text we've been reading, or at least Catherine Malibu, where she looks at how anarchy has been philosophized, but perhaps never made the leap into a political realm from the philosophers who are philosophizing it. And we're sort of interested in not necessarily that movement in dance, but a movement of how do you dance? So where she's saying, how do you think anarchy? We're sort of asking, how do you dance anarchy? So Foucault is really important in that, I think, this self-governance. So how do you move out the way of the domination that we have sort of inhabited through years of dance training, or just our social political history, our background, our privilege or lack of privilege? How do we deal with that when we do this move and call it anarchy? Like, where does the domination come in? Which I think,
I mean, also to come back to the beginning questions that are kind of implied in this, like, so maybe I am more comfortable and familiar with calling something dance.
Yeah.
But calling something anarchy, even from within the research, always causes this question of like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What do I understand as anarchy? Is it the absence of power? Is it chaos? Is it disorder? Or is it also freedom? I think we had a sharing yesterday with people, and within this kind of overthinking and overdoing amongst between the two of us, I was in a way really surprised how simple people also connect to the question. It's like, oh, it's also a question of like, what does it mean to be free, and where do I find freedom? And freedom is a very big word, and it's very complicated, and you might also be uncomfortable using it or problematicize using it. But like the hypothetical question itself, as of what if I move and call it anarchy, to just hypothetically say where lies my experience of a sort of freedom in dancing.
Exactly.
And then obviously, to come back to what you were saying, then all these things that I have learned, all these ideas of what is it to be a good dancer, what is it to do pretty dance or smart dance or important dance, I think are up for debate in a way. But debate between myself even, because is it free? Am I free dancing when I'm constantly negotiating these questions? If I'm asking myself, oh, this is important, this is meaningful, this should be seen, this is really smart. All these things are kind of commands or orders that sit upon my dancing. And then for me, doing this exercise and also having shared it with people poses the question, what does it feel like to be outside of these questions?
Yes.
And what kind of dancing can I be in dialogue with then?
Yeah.
Or is dancing the way of being in dialogue with the state outside of these questions?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think maybe we can try this next sort of task or assignment where we want to invite you to hide the dancing anarchist, maybe, this figure within us, the dance which is anarchy, the dancing anarchist from domination. So if we imagine like these conditions which frame or put restrictions or, well, that dominate, that limit the freedom of our dancing, if we find a way of hiding that from that vision and that place. And I think because the gaze of the other, being together, this is what I was really trying to remind us of, is like this relationship that dance exists in, is really paramount, I think, to how we self-govern as much as how we are governed, how we feel domination. So the next thing is, firstly, let's cancel the dance, officially cancel the dance. This is what we did in the workshop yesterday, or in the sharing yesterday, is we officially cancelled the dance. And I invite you to do that. So what that does is it removes it, I think, from like a state of what Catherine Malibu would call ungovernable, where it's a protest, it's visible, it's a condition which is in relationship to the to governance. And by officially cancelling, there's then the opportunity for perhaps a non-governable dance, a dance that is indifferent to governance. It doesn't recognize governance. It's maybe like the baby, or the animal. They can only be dominated, so they can't be governed. They can only be dominated, which would perhaps lead to, especially with an animal, if you dominate an animal, there's a likelihood that they will become ungovernable. But if they're not ungovernable through domination, they would be non-governable. They will never be governable in the same sense as we are governable, where we sort of self-govern ourselves. So firstly, we cancel the dance. And then I go back to this task that I've done a lot on this podcast, where I invite you, don't dance, and you can do anything you want. You can sit, you can lie, walk around. If you feel as though you're dancing, you can just do something else, change what you're doing. You can sing. What else did we say you could do?
Could
you can
write.
ask questions. You can write. You can choose not to answer questions. You can leave the room. That was really important. We were looking at free association, and we felt like leaving the room, opting out or pausing or stopping is a really powerful way to try to negotiate domination and set one's own limits to it. So you can always sort of free yourself in that way. You can maybe listen to something, not listen to something. You can close your eyes. You can do whatever you want. You can even dance. This is the kind of paradox, or the beautiful contradiction in it all. Officially, we cancel the dance. We ask you not to dance, or we tell you that you can do anything you want and even dance. And you do this in order to keep your dance hidden from domination. So that's the sort of assignment. And so I would, if you want to go away, cancel the dance, don't do it. And then if you find it possible, find places where you can hide the dance, even from yourself. Yeah?
Let's do it.
Cool. Okay, we have a couple more.
I just wanted to say about this one, because I think the idea of hiding domination is also a little bit an idea that...
hiding the dance from domination.
Hiding the dance from domination is an idea that you were into it. And sometimes for myself, I translate it also, or how I relate to it, is with this image of singing in the shower.
Ah, that's nice, yeah.
Or dancing in the shower in this case. But this thing of when you don't feel you're being observed from the outside, and maybe you don't even catch yourself singing.
Yeah.
There's just something that feels available already, and it just comes out, and then you click, oh yeah, I'm humming this tune, I'm singing this song, I'm doing this little dance. And you might also do this while you do other things. So you might do this while you're cooking, or you're doing your taxes. I mean, no one does this while they're doing the taxes. That's a form of domination. But this idea that to hide it from yourself or to hide it from others is also that small pocket, this almost insular, isolated moment that maybe gives you, almost a bit like a TAS, a temporary autonomous zone.
Yeah.
That gives you small room to breathe and maybe experience something that you can't really touch on so easily in everyday life.
No, and definitely, I think my interest was like, okay, so if dance can be this sort of thing that can obscure or like move away from or exist indifferent to domination, I think that's what I'm trying to say, then how can we find more ways of bringing that into the world and recognizing it and taking care of it as well? Like there's a desire to honor it as a potential space for organization, for politics, for creativity, for art, for love, for life. And actually, it's interesting that I end with life because Catherine sort of draws a connection between anarchy and life, like pure being or being existence, being a form of anarchy, which is sort of interesting when then, exactly as you say, Benni, like this sort of dancing free from the world, dancing in the shower, this sort of hidden place. And perhaps even hidden from yourself. The intention of being in the shower isn't to dance, so you can somehow hide from your own governance, maybe very different to like going into the dance studio where you are explicitly with yourself and your own understanding of what dance should be and what you should, how you should behave in the in the studio, whereas in the shower, you are there for other reasons. It's also that it's a space of cleanliness and hygiene. So there's a type of intimacy with oneself, which maybe creates a greater trust and freedom to expose yourself to things which maybe you consider to be dirty, because it's allowed in that space. There's something funny there, that it is a shower that you've chosen as a metaphor or an example of like this space.
And I also think of it as this whole idea of hiding it is also a way of taking care of it.
Exactly.
So maybe what if you move and you call it anarchy is a way of touching upon something that feels more free, even if it's not freedom, but it just more free than other things. Then how do you take care of that feeling? By hiding it from your own kind of censorship, but also from outside censorship. Yeah. But then with the next exercise, actually, I think the question gets opened, and how do you then share these things also?
Exactly. So the next task is to find affinities, to find secret affinities maybe. And so an affinity, we're really borrowing from activist language, where you form affinity groups which are intended to have a shared value in order to act within a protest situation or an action or something like that, like you find an affinity. But here we think of affinity as like that you share something in common. It's not a sharing as we understand it. It's to hold close something. And the fact that it's hidden may mean that those affinities are never externalized. They're never made explicit. They can be, and perhaps they are in one way or another. But that imagination of like affinities arising and popping up, like the autonomous zone that you speak of, this sort of Rancière says it in sort of Café Malibu, that this type of politics can sort of emerge in pockets, sort of bubbling up, so to speak. But yeah, if those affinities can remain hidden from domination, so that's where the what you're talking about, like how do you share this, or like how does it become relational in a different way, whilst remaining hidden. It's hidden from domination. So it's this sort of like disability that, say you are in a collaboration and you're sharing something, or you're in a dance with a choreographer, that you can always opt out. You can always hide or create a safety around your own freedom, around your own sense of dance, to create stronger affinities. You can bring it in an affinity with yourself. You know, I will only dance this dance when I'm alone in the shower, so to speak, or I will try to protect it, because there's also something about time in that as well. Like there needs to be time for healing. There needs to be time for oneself. There is a time for bringing it to the forefront and speaking with domination and standing up against it. So for me, the obvious example is calling oneself an anarchist. It's a provocative and evocative statement to be an anarchist. It's almost impossible to stand for, because no one knows what anarchy is. No one can know what anarchy is. So to be an anarchist is sort of somehow an oxymoron. However, it acts a little bit as a promise, as a provocation, as an attestment to being ungovernable. And I think judging where you say I am an anarchist, I wish to present this as ungovernable, to when you hide it and keep it within close affinities or secret affinities, and allow it to remain non-governable, indifferent, and hidden from domination, is really important. Yeah, I think that actually covers a lot of what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I have written, you can remember this dance doesn't have to exist. This is something that came up. It was very useful. That you can always remember that none of these things are, none of the dancing we do in society, in the world, has to exist. Which also means it can exist differently, I think.
And also, if I try to understand this prompt, find affinities in relationship to the previous two proposals, I also think of it as a hypothetical. So you might find yourself doing this prompt alone at home or with other people in a room. So finding affinities might mean different things. But if you think of it as a hypothetical, it's also what if you're not alone in the room?
Exactly.
What if things that aren't human matter as much as you that are in the room? What if you project what you do into the room into the world? So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
No, it's really helpful. So go away if you wish. Don't dance, do what you want, of course. Thank you for listening. But see if you can find some hidden affinities. Actually, there's a paradox in the thing of finding affinities, if they're to be hidden. But find them outside of domination, or be in affinities outside of domination. Maybe that's also kind of a nice way of putting it. Be in affinities outside of domination. All right, we'll see you in a bit. So I think one thing I wanted to say about that is temporally, this is a life project. You can do it. I mean, we did it very shortly, literally as short as it could possibly be. But I felt I did it so short because I was like, oh, this is something me and Benni and me and myself and me and the environments I'm in will continue to sort of practice. So I also encourage that, to consider on what temporality are you dancing with these affinities, and how does that continue, and when do you turn away from the dance studio? When do you turn away from the dancing? When do you turn away from the politics of dance? When do you go back to life as normal? When does creativity and criticality become unhelpful or unuseful? When is it better to be ungovernable, to being indifferent? When is it better to being quiet and protective and removing yourself from a conflict, from having to be ungovernable, having to be in protest or friction with domination? So it's a life project, I think I wanted to say.
I wanted to say two things in relationship to affinities or finding hidden affinities. One is that I also related to this practice that I've been developing with you, Peter, and with Sunniva Vico-Egenis, that for now found its name in dancing for something. It normally starts by dancing for yourself, then dancing for something else, and then dancing for each other. And what it does for me is actually a colleague of mine, Guy Hitten, has put it like this. He put it like, how do you invite something else into the studio with you? And it relates back to this question of if you are doing this alone in the studio dancing and trying to find hidden affinities, I also, in a way, maybe think about what if this dance isn't just happening by itself. Maybe it is dance happening for something else that is outside of the room. That's just a kind of a tool in a relationship that comes in this, that even if you're alone, you're never really alone. Even if you're in the studio, you're not just in the studio. The conditions that create the studio are always bigger than just the studio. Yeah.
And actually, I think what's really nice is that you bring it up, because I think what transforms for me by having addressed these questions of how does an anarchist dance, what is anarchy, what is dance, is that in the four, to be able to dance for myself, I need to provide the conditions in which I feel safe enough to dance. And like many of us in dance have had, traumatic feels always a little bit overblown to sort of paint everything with that color, but a relationship with domination, probably of some sort, in relationship to dance, and it sits in very different ways for different people, and many people leave dance because of it, and many people fight and struggle and and there's always this sort of contested relationship. And so if you're going to do it truly for oneself, how do you care for it, be kind to, protect that dancing for oneself? And I think it's very anarchic as well. There's a sort of embedded contradiction in anarchism, which is this idea that the individual and the collective are equally important. And that's the fact that you start with for oneself, it kind of gives the leading that, or the idea that if you can take care of yourself, then you can take care of others. And that's the same with like freedom. Your freedom to do what you do is only available to yourself, like in this sort of caring, felt sense, because you allow others to be free and live their life as they need to, and you participate perhaps in ensuring that you're not dominating them as much as you are securing a safe way of looking after yourself inside of these relationships of domination. And I think when we get to this point in anarchism, we start to realize that it's utopian in its sort of direction, but it's also, there isn't a blueprint. There isn't a world that it can really articulate, because it doesn't ever truly say that domination will never exist. It's more, how do we deal with it, and how do we take care of it, and take care of that promise of dancing for ourselves, and dancing for something else or someone else or something, something greater than us. Yeah.
I also, before we did the last exercise, you were saying like, oh, it's scary to call yourself an anarchist. And obviously people might listen to this that don't call themselves anarchist. And in our conversation between each other, I also would remember this this article that I read once, and it's many years ago when I was a teenager, so I don't remember where it was written, who wrote it. But it kind of started with, I'm an anarchist, therefore I'm a Democrat, I'm a socialist, I'm a communist, I'm a libertarian, I'm a da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. And what I see in this is also that the call or the question or the articulation, the naming of anarchy or oneself as an anarchist basically poses a question around what is freedom as a personal and as a shared experience. So maybe the label isn't necessarily what you have to get stuck with. You don't have to call yourself an anarchist to ask these questions. Many other people struggle around the same question. But I do think that for me and personally also, there's to come back full circle to So what if you just start to move and call it anarchy, that it is a provocation to myself to address these questions of domination and order and what lies potentially outside, next to, and indifferent to these things that normally I can feel very clearly ordering and affecting my dancing.
Yeah, and I think that's where we'll leave it as well. With that prompt, we won't give you any guidance around like reflection, which I sometimes do. What if your movement, what if you move and you call it anarchy? Or what if you've moved and you consider it as having been anarchy? But I'd like to say thank you to you, Benni, for joining me. And
thank you for having me.
And thank you for doing this research with me. It's been really great. And thank you for listening, if you've listened this far. And I'd like to say, if you are still interested in our research, I will put up, I have put up some texts we wrote. Benni wrote a poem called Manifest, and I wrote a text, a sort of manifesto called The Dancing Anarchist. How does an anarchist dance? And if you're still interested in our research, we will continue likely.
It is a live project. Yeah,
we'll keep our references there as well. We'll try and put together as many that we remember. There's a really nice video by Yvonne Rayner. I highly recommend it. It's been edited by someone we don't know, but we hope one day to get in touch with them, because it's a really beautiful homage to Yvonne Rayner. But yeah, this was the research where we asked the question, how do anarchists dance? Thank you for listening, and see you again.
Thank you.